RKW is brewed by 8th and Roast on 104.5 The Zone. Talking Vols as we do every Friday at 7:20 with Ramon Foster and Kayla Anderson. I am Will Bowling, joined by our good friend Brent Hubbs of VolQuest.com. Brent, have you been able to thaw out up there in Knoxville? How are the roads looking for people making their way to Thompson Bowling Arena tomorrow?
Oh, they're going to be all right. Great, no, but they're going to be fine on the interstate, the side roads. They've done a good job on campus clearing things out. It's going to be above freezing here today. We had a little freezing rain last night, but it's going to get better throughout the day today here finally, and nothing's melting, but the roads have been treated, and they're going to clear up. So I don't think anybody will have any real troubles getting into Thompson Bowling Arena for what should be a good matchup tomorrow afternoon between Tennessee and the Tide.
And it's just incredible that there are Alabama athletes who haven't transferred and will be in uniform tomorrow. I had to get that little dig in, Brent. I did see, though, the other day that Austin Price was not only in the building, it had a courtside picture at the Food City Center for Tennessee and Florida. So I guess Austin Price, is he like picking guys up in ATVs or something? Like what's his situation? How is he so high profile that he's in the building?
He's living his best life. I mean, they threw some rose petals at him when he walked in. I mean, he was courtside at the Grizzlies in December. He's courtside at Food City Center. He takes helicopter rides wherever he needs to go. I mean, he's living the best life. The rest of us are just, we're just doing whatever he tells us to do, basically.
That's right. Good way to be. Brent Hubbs, our guest this morning here on RKW. Brent, let's start with the local prospect here in 2025, five-star quarterback, George McIntyre. Austin told us Tuesday, I think Josh Heupel's ready to send snowplows to Brentwood. That way BA can go back to school and George can maybe get into the building and make a commitment. What can you tell us about that timeline and perhaps getting an answer on that next week?
I think it's a matter of when they get back in school. Are they going to be in school Monday at Brentwood Academy or Tuesday? I think that when they get back in school and can get things situated and set up, then I think we'll get news from George. I think George is done. George is ready to announce his decision. He wants to do it in front of family and friends being guys at school that he wants to do around and be a part of. He just doesn't want to, just put out a social media post and be done, which I certainly don't blame him for that. There's some people he wants to thank and be around those guys and gals to show his appreciation for them. So as soon as Brentwood Academy gets in school, I think we'll get some news from George McIntyre. And it's supposed to be 60 that way, I think, middle of the week. So surely by no later than middle of the week, we're going back to school.
Yeah, when you look at his situation also, man, if he who are the two schools that he's down to, two or three schools that he's down to, as far as Brent, just before I speculate and think he's all Vol or something like that, what are his schools? And if you've talked to him, what's his deciding factors on committing this early?
Well, I think his two biggest schools are Tennessee and Alabama. And obviously Alabama's gone through a change, but they brought in an offensive-minded coach and a coach who did some really good things with Michael Penix, at Washington, and they throw it around a lot. And so, there's some intrigue there, although he just doesn't have that kind of relationship with Caleb DeBoer. And LSU was the other school. They've already got their quarterback for the class of 25. And I think a big factor for George McIntyre is about relationships, and it's about a comfort level. There's a lot of places he can go and be successful because he's a talented athlete with a huge upside and a real skill set. But I think at the end of the day, he's looking for a place that he's comfortable. He's got trust in the coaching staff, belief in the coaching staff, and it feels connected to those guys. And I think Josh Heupel, 6-7 months ago, maybe 8 months ago, really made George a priority in that class of 25. And I think George, feels that and understands that. I think that's why Tennessee has been positioning themselves well and in the minds of a lot of people trending as a popular choice here the last 6 or 7 weeks, to be honest with you.
When you look at, as you said a second ago, Brent Hubbs with us this morning, when you look at it a second ago, you said LSU already has their guy. I think he was the number one guy so far in this class, and if I'm not mistaken, both him and George will be 5 stars. I think they're early right now with that. How does that affect a school? How does that affect recruiting? Have you seen trends of schools getting high caliber quarterbacks bring more talent to the team too. Is that why it's more important for those guys to understand if I commit to the school, then I can also help commit and bring other high prospects to the university I'm going to attend also?
Well, I think quarterbacks come off the board early for a couple of reasons. One is selfish, right? There's only one football and there's only one spot, right? Nobody's going to go somewhere where they're, 5 deep at quarterback or 4 deep at quarterback. I mean, they don't set. That's why there was a lot of high-profile quarterbacks in the transfer portal this offseason. I mean, you look at Brock Vandagriff from down at Georgia. I mean, he's not going to win the job there, right? They've got their guy. And so he's looking to play elsewhere, and that's why he went in the portal. So these guys are looking to kind of claim their spot early. That's why you see quarterbacks committing earlier than some other positions. And then they do have an effect in peer recruiting because, receivers are wanting to play somewhere where a guy can get them the ball, the guy that they believe in. And, all these guys know each other now through 7-on-7 tournaments and camps and all those types of things. But I don't know that peer recruiting has as much of an impact as it did 5-10 years ago because of the emergence of NIL. I think, instead of, a lot of people building dream classes like we've seen through the years, everybody's making a selfish decision. I mean, and they should, don't get me wrong. I mean, it's just one of those deals where, they're looking out for their best interest. And in some cases, for some guys, it's distance from home. For some guys, it's being around, other good players. Some guys, it's the coaching staff and the style of play. And for some guys, it's strictly, what does my NIL deal look like there compared to somewhere else? And, hey, if I can get a good deal for year one, if it don't work out, I can always go to portal. I go to portal twice a year if I want to. So there's a little bit more of that kind of decision-making going on in recruiting right now than we've seen in years past, obviously with the emergence of NIL.
Brent Hubbs of VolQuest joining us this morning on RKW. Pending the weather this weekend, like you had mentioned, Brent, obviously Junior Day taking place. What are and who are some of the guys that we could be looking out for, some of these younger names?
Well, I mean, you talk about, George is supposed to be here this weekend. David Sanders is a high-profile offensive tackle from over in Charlotte that is scheduled to be in this weekend as well. He is priority for Tennessee. He's priority for George McIntyre. If I'm George McIntyre, that's where I'm hanging out all weekend long because I want somebody protecting my blind side and my front side and everything else because I think David Sanders has a huge, huge ability as an offensive tackle, and he's a major priority. Somebody else George has been talking to, a lots of wide receiver by the name of Jamie French, who's a former Alabama commitment who backed off that commitment with Nick Saban's retirement, the new coaching staff coming in. Alabama's still in the picture there, but he's opened up to other schools. Tennessee's trying to get him at some point to town. I don't know that he's going to be here this weekend, but they're trying to get him into town as well. They've got a bunch of guys coming in terms of Junior Day visitors. It's a good-looking list. Now, who knows if they all get here, right? I mean, they're right. They may wake up and their mom and dad might say, it's too cold to get outside. We're not going. It's a Junior Day that these things are all over the place. I mean, there's a bunch of those guys that talk about coming that end up not coming, and we'll see, as to who gets there and who doesn't get here when it's all said and done. So we've listed a bunch of names in the war room, but we'll have to wait and see how many of those guys actually show up or don't show up. And again, this is not the perfect weather situation for what you're looking for a Junior Day, but hopefully they'll have a good number of guys in this weekend.
Yeah, and some of these assistants also taking time to go try to continue recruitment with some of the other top prospects in the country right now, including edge prospect Ari Watford. I know Tim Banks, you said in War Room, maybe expected to be there in Virginia on Friday.
Yeah, they've been all over the country this week. Most of them got out of town before the weather got bad and have gone and recruited. They've been anywhere from St. Louis to the West Coast to up to New Jersey, I think, and D.C., Virginia, Florida, Georgia. I mean, it's one of those deals now where everybody goes out for the week, basically, and they beat the weather out of town, and they've been on the road recruiting all week long and taking full advantage of the opportunity to visit with some prospects in the class of 25 and 26. And you can now talk to those 25 prospects in school. It's not illegal like it used to be, where everybody just conveniently bumped into them in the coach's office. The NCAA said, look, we can't police that. Let's just let them meet with them. So it's not just going by and looking at a transcript at the high school. They're actually visiting with the kids at the high schools and spending some time with them. And obviously some of their stuff in the state of Tennessee got derailed this week because of weather that shut schools down. So they altered that, and most of their work has gone outside of the state of Tennessee this week.
Brent Hubbs of AllQuest with us here at our RKW. Brent, it's amazing. We've spoken about it before, the talent in the state of Tennessee and how much that has grown over the years. And specifically when you look at the quarterback position, this time last year, we kind of started talking about George McIntyre. It's weird thinking about 2026, but you got the number one quarterback in the country, according to On3, and Jared Curtis, who's down the road from us here at Nashville Christian as well. I know it's hard to say the Tennessee job has gotten easier from a recruiting standpoint, because Texas and Oklahoma joining the conference certainly does not make anything easier. But in terms of acquiring talent in your backyard, just how big of a difference do you see in the prospects available to Tennessee in state? Because I can never remember a time where you could go Marcel Reed, George McIntyre, Jared Curtis, Kenny Minchie. I mean, so many of these QBs in state. Brock Glenn, who's starting for FSU in the ACC championship. I know I'm long-winded in asking this, but you could go on and on, Brent, with some of these quarterbacks, and it's still just kind of mind-blowing to me.
Well, the quarterback thing is the one that's just crazy, kind of what's popped up there. Because, you think about in the state of Tennessee from a quarterback standpoint, I mean, you're talking B.J. Coleman from Chattanooga years ago. There's just not been a ton of quarterbacks who have come through. There's been some athletes who played quarterback. I mean, Cedric Wilson was a quarterback, but I mean, nobody believed he was going to be a quarterback in college. Same thing with Jawan Jennings. There were some athletes who played quarterback, but in terms of guys being true quarterbacks, I mean, you got to go B.J. Coleman. You got to think Chad Pennington. There was a kid at Upper East Tennessee that ended up at Wisconsin, played a little bit, but there hasn't been nearly what we're seeing now at the quarterback position. So that's certainly different. In terms of talent overall, it's a little bit of a catch-22. One, there's a ton more talent, but the talent does not have oftentimes does not have huge ties to Tennessee because they're a transplant family. Business brought them to town. They didn't grow up necessarily, with generations of Vol fans in their families like you would have had 20 years ago. But there's more talent to recruit from. The other result of that talent and the base of talent in the state of Tennessee and the accessibility to the state of Tennessee is schools from around the country are recruiting Tennessee. Whereas years ago, I mean, you might have to deal with Alabama coming across straight lines and, Kentucky might come down. Now Oregon's flying into Nashville to spend 2 days recruiting, right? I mean, SC's coming in. All those things are coming in. And then when you surround the footprint of Tennessee, Georgia's better. Alabama's been on a run. So in some ways, recruiting in Tennessee is easier because there's more options in the state of Tennessee. And in other ways, it's harder because it's more competitive in the state of Tennessee for those kids' signatures than it's ever been.
Brent, the other side of that, man, is business is booming too. And a lot of that, and if you could speak on the fans' participation in this too, because UT released their revenue from the last fiscal year last year, and it was over $200 million for the university. I know we get toxic as heck on social media and other fan bases hate us, man, but how big of an accomplishment is that for all of Vol Nation, not just the university, but the fans that support in Tennessee, out of state, and everywhere else? That's not a small number.
No, and life's good when you're winning, right? And you look at where Tennessee's been. I mean, they sent 2 teams to the College World Series last year in baseball and softball. They went to the Sweet 16 in both sports and basketball. They went to a New Year's Six in football. Swimming had a great year. Tennis, golf made a run. I mean, you can go on and on. That's why they won the All Sports Trophy. And, I think that Tennessee has done a really good job of marketing themselves as an everything school. I think you go back to President Randy Boyd and Chancellor Plowman and what they're doing to attract in-state kids to come to the state institution. whereas previous administrations said they didn't want Tennessee to get bigger. They wanted it to be smaller. They were happy that they weren't the biggest school in the state when MTSU passed them years ago. That's not the belief of this current administration. They want the state institution to grow. So it's gotten some more options. I won't say easier, but they are focusing more on in-state kids and making sure that they have an opportunity to go. What does that do? That drives up the opportunity for donations, and that helps you in the state with various funding and different things like that. Then you look at something as simplistic, and fans didn't like it, but I heard this from a bunch of people at Tennessee in this administration when they first got here. They were blown away and dumbfounded by the fact that if you made a donation for football season tickets, you had an option to buy basketball season tickets without making a basketball donation. Well, they've changed that. They've separated those. If you want a basketball season ticket, you've got to make a donation now. That's a difference of about $13 million a year into the budget. And so that helps you get to that number. Danny White wanted to be at $200 million in revenue and in his budget by 26 and 27. He's obviously, gotten there faster, and it's because of the success that you have had on the field and you've had on the court of play. And Tennessee has continued to have a good year so far this year. And we'll see what that looks like as the rest of the spring goes. But I think there's a lot of excitement about where they are baseball and softball-wise, golf, and everything else this spring.
Brent Hubbs of VolQuest, our guest every Friday here on RKW at Brent_Hubbs, where you can find the best info covering Tennessee on the market. Brent, we appreciate the time, and just know that if you ever need to cheer up or make Ramon Foster smile or happy at all, just shoot him a text that another Alabama player has entered the transfer portal as one who's the number one quarterback, according to On3 just did for 2024 in Julian Sayin.
I'm telling you, here's an interesting thing, and I know you guys are up against it. We got to go. But here's one of the interesting things I think schools have to look at moving forward. How much better would Alabama's situation have been if Nick Saban had waited until February 1 to announce his retirement? Because all these guys going in the portal would not have had a chance to go somewhere for the spring semester. They would have been stuck because school would have been had started already. I think with the portal, that's something people are going to look at moving forward with their calendar. And I think schools are also going to look at promoting within to try to preserve their roster, which Washington elected not to do. And that's why they've got 24 guys in the portal right now as well.
It's crazy. Yeah. Maybe Coach K was right all along. Do the retirement tour and get all the frame pictures and basketballs and footballs and go on your merry way. Great stuff as always with Brent Hubbs of VolQuest. Brent, thank you.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you.
Yes, sir.
Thanks,
There's Brent Hubbs with us this morning. We'll hit that headline when we come back. Alabama had a handful of 5 stars, and now they're Will Smith in an empty living room. Next.
Hey, it's Kayla Anderson with Farmers Insurance. The Ingram Agency, they are great, and they are right here in Middle Tennessee, from the ground up, built by Chris Ingram and his great crew back in 2010. And, family is so important, and now is the time to make sure that you have them protected. About half the households in America don't have any life insurance, and those that do just simply don't have enough. The Ingram Agency, however, is here to help you with complimentary reviews of current life insurance policies and assistance in closing any gaps that your family may need. So don't find yourself in a financial devastation during the darkest of times. Call the Ingram Agency, and they will help you out. Where your protection is our promise. You reach out today and experience the Ingram difference. You can go online. Simply log online to theинgramagency.com. That's theingramagency.com.
Rolling right along on a Friday morning edition of RKW, brewed up by 8th and Rose, 615-737-1045, our number. The breaking news from ESPN's Pete Thamel, Alabama freshman quarterback Julian Sayin, the top-ranked quarterback in the country, according to On3. He is in the On3 industry ranking as the number 5 player in America. Ramon Foster just has the biggest smile on his face. He will be entering the transfer portal before ever taking a snap for the Crimson Tide. The problem in this, guys, is that one of his other finalists was Georgia. So again, like, Alabama's getting weaker, but Georgia and Texas are getting stronger.
I'd much rather deal with Georgia fans than Bama fans all day. I would. Georgia fans seem to have a little bit more class. Like, Bama fans were birthed into this because of Nick Saban to me. Like, you actually thought you were good enough to stand on your own as a university when it was essentially more or less just the coach that you had. That's what gets me about it. And I've seen Tennessee fans and fans of other fan bases, not Tennessee fans necessarily, but people that were born into this go search for Alabama to be their team because they're winning. And I know everybody loves a winner, but I think this is a tale for everybody to recognize. Like, unless you have that type of foundation, you're as good as that foundation is in college. The same way that Coach K was at Duke or any of these other legendary guys, it does on the college level. Resorts to the actual coaches and the culture that they have there more than any other sport, I feel like.
I think this also shows that, perspective from these young kids that are actually playing for these coaches and just this generation, like, their perspective on head coaches is a lot different from maybe what the national media is seeing and others are seeing, right? Because to me, this looks like these kids that had signed on with Alabama, thought that they were going to be coached by Nick Saban. To them, this is so drastic in terms of a different type of coach, what they assume at least, or they're not impressed with, Washington going to the national championship this past year. Obviously, they didn't win it, but it's still an accomplishment in terms of what Kalen DeBoer has done. But that doesn't matter. Like, that, for what I'm seeing right now, players at Alabama who are high recruits, high signees, like, they're out and they're not even giving it a chance.
Yeah.
Brent Hubbs brought up an interesting point. Should Nick Saban have waited to announce his retirement?
Yeah, I think he should have. I don't think he could, though. I think he should, but I don't think he could. I just think it was at the point where he crossed every T and dotted every I so much that there was nothing left for him to do other than move on.
It is interesting that the worst thing to happen to Alabama was making the college football playoff over Florida State. Genuinely, this was the worst case scenario. You don't get a championship out of it. You don't even advance to the national championship game. And now players can leave you, but you can't add anyone because of the schedule around college football. This is what it was always going to take to change the arithmetic of the way things work in college football, was Alabama getting the short end of the stick. That's just the way it goes, right? When the blue blood program of the last 15 years gets the short end of the stick because the calendar of college football is royally messed up, like, could not be worse for all parties involved, that is when you actually get change happening in the sport. And I would expect it to happen now, where this will not happen in the future, where if a coach leaves after the playoff and all of this transpires, that, teams can't just go open season on a team without them having the ability to add talent back.
And to add to that too, I vividly remember, us changing coaches, where players went to Alabama, players went to Oklahoma, players went to Louisville, players went all across the United States to other teams, and everybody made it seem like the university was bad. I think this, again, it should open your eyes that university are really based upon their coaches. The next coach that you hire after a guy like him leave is very crucial to your success. And seeing now this latest 5-star leave tells this late in it also, Will, I feel like Kalen DeBoer is probably on campus and has had a conversation with them somehow, somewhere.
Yep.
And he still left.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
let that sink in.
The best scenario for Alabama competing in 2024 was promoting Tommy Rees to head coach. And it's exactly why Ryan Day was promoted at Ohio State. It's why when Jim Harbaugh leaves in a couple of days or in a week, Sharon Moore will be the head coach at Michigan. Like, that is now the new way to continue what you had and not have a mass exodus. Promote your top assistant. Well, at Alabama, Kevin Steele retired, and Tommy Rees just happened to be the OC with Nick Saban at the time of him retiring. Like, the ideal scenario for Alabama was Lane Kiffin, Steve Sarkisian, heck, even Bill O'Brien, who's been a head coach before, being the OC when he retired. This is the worst case scenario for Alabama.
Notre Dame's wasn't a promotion from in-house.
Marcus Freeman, yep.
And
Sure
they
was.
kept most of all their recruits, did they
Sure
not?
was. Yep. 615-737-1045. I'm surprised, too, that Washington didn't just promote from within themselves for the same reason.
But it's also to you that same point. They've had conversation with the players on campus, right? You'd expect.
Yep. Absolutely. Coming up, we'll reset the headlines. Titans making a couple more or one more request and finishing up 2 more virtual interviews. Plus, the Chicago Bears set to interview their offensive coordinator candidate, what that could mean around the league. Coming up at halftime of the show.
What's going on? 8 o'clock. Good morning from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I'm Robert Walsh. Big news from yesterday. The Los Angeles Chargers completed their interview with former Titans head coach Mike Vrabel. Chargers have also been in a discussion with a couple other coaches, former Stanford head coach David Shaw, who also interviewed with the Titans, Bengals offensive coordinator Brian Callahan, Leslie Frazier, and Jim Harbaugh. And a late news dump last night as two more coaches completed interviews, one in Tennessee. The Titans completed their interview with Houston offensive coordinator Bobby Slowick. We also learned this morning that they had a virtual interview with defensive coordinator for the Lions, Aaron Glenn. And in Carolina, Panthers completed their interview with Bucs offensive coordinator Dave Canales for the head coaching position. But it wasn't just interviews happening yesterday. Some people were hired. Some people is Bill O'Brien, as he was hired to be Ohio State's new offensive coordinator. He spent last year with the Patriots as their offensive coordinator. The move comes with a potential shift between the Ohio State program, as Ryan Day sought out an experienced coach that would allow him to give up play calling duties. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Hour number 3 and the second half of your Friday morning starting right now. From a warm and cozy studio looking out at the snow globe of Music City and the snow globe of humble Hendersonville, where the wildlife are flocking to Ramon Foster's crib. They said, wait a minute, we get a live studio audience for an episode of RKW brewed by 8th and Rose. Count us in. And you can count yourself into the best coffee in Nashville if you stop by 8th Avenue, Charlotte, the Broadview at Vanderbilt, or if you are flying out of Nashville, Tennessee, stop by the airport and get some 8th and Rose coffee. You can find your favorite retail bag in every local Kroger and Whole Foods as well. 615-737-1045, streaming live on Facebook Live, YouTube, Twitter, or Twitch.
Twitch, please.
Thank you so much.
Dang, you gonna let Kayla beat
That's
you, man?
right. If you're going to be that slow, you better get on it.
It is Friday, and Kayla Anderson is successfully acting like it.
And Moan brings all the doughs to the yard. Is that accurate?
I don't know. Yes, they are. The real question is where they baby daddies at, Bert? That's the real question. Where's the dear baby daddies at, man? Do they just leave?
That is right. A beautiful morning in Music City, USA. And a beautiful morning to hear this song, as always. There is a life-altering thing that's happened to me this morning. Not to be dramatic. When have I ever been dramatic?
Never.
The Immaculate Grid comes out at 7 a.m. now instead of 8 a.m.
Whoa.
Really?
Crazy.
Before Bert's awake.
Well, but Bert's always awake.
No.
What do you mean?
I'm on autopilot.
Remember
until
at
like
8
o'clock.
a.m. is when he really wakes up? We established that?
Oh, yes. That might have been a day I
Yeah.
wasn't here when we established that.
Okay.
I
Maybe
didn't
it
remember
was.
that.
He's back officially now. He's back. He's up.
Yeah. It's 8:04.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that works. Okay. Just
Alive
making
and
sure.
kicking. Back
Yeah.
then.
No, he's got to prep himself for this weekend. It's a lot on his
Oh.
plate.
That is true.
you know?
Man, honestly, I came in here and there was so much stuff to do that I had forgotten that my anxiety-riddled body was about to fold. But I'm glad that you brought it back, and now I can just creep back into my little ball underneath this desk back here.
Perfect.
Are you going, Bert?
You know what? I had someone gave me the opportunity to go to the game this weekend, and I just could not make it work.
Dang.
What?
So if they get to the AFC Championship, I will. I am going to try to make it work.
Okay.
All right.
If they get
They
there.
will. That's the
Don't
attitude.
say that.
No.
See, I can't do it. See, it's okay if
Okay,
y'all
I'm
do
done.
it. It's okay if y'all do it, but like it's like since like week 3, Cheyenne's like they're going to the Super Bowl. They're going to the Super Bowl. Shut up. Don't jinx it.
That voice is the most disrespectful thing you've ever said about Cheyenne.
Well, I mean, she the same person that yells
true.
scoreboard when you're up 3-0 in the first quarter. She's just not the best sports fan. She doesn't understand. She doesn't get it. I'm trying to bring her along. I'm trying to teach her, but like I told you this morning when she slipped on the ice because I told her it was there. It's my fault.
Yeah, right.
Most things are my fault.
Because you said it was there.
I'm actually the one that did it. I don't know if you guys knew or not, but I'm a wizard.
Oh,
yeah, my
really?
wizard name is Robert Frost, not the poet. So it's my fault that the ice was on the stairs. That's my fault. I apologize.
Did y'all have to
Wait,
memorize
what?
Robert Frost poems in school too?
I did, but I couldn't. I
Yeah.
could give you like the Forest Path poem maybe if I tried.
Yeah.
No, Bert, man. Listen, man. Why do we as fellas, okay, whenever they mess up, and you know who they are, we take responsibility for it, Bert? No, she should have been more athletic enough to not slip and fall on the steps, Bert.
She should have not taken. She should have taken the road not taken. If we're still quoting Robert Frost.
It would make all the difference.
It
Would make all the difference. We were in 6th grade and we memorized that. We were told, like, oh, students remember this years and years later, and we'll come back and still recite it. I do not remember it at all. It's okay, though. Interviews this morning for the Tennessee Titans. Brian Johnson, according to Ian Rappaport, the Eagles OC, is scheduled to interview today. Titans had interviews last night with Bobby Slowick, and in the afternoon with Panthers OC Thomas Brown. An 11th interview scheduled this morning with former Stanford head coach, David Shaw.
Yeah, big time. They're rolling through these things, man. In-person's already been set up already with one of the candidates. I wonder who's the second in-person to drop here in Nashville. That'll really tell us where it's at, especially if they go second offensive guy.
I would imagine somebody who's already interviewed already, right?
Yeah,
Right.
I mean,
Of the
of
seven.
course, it'll be that. But I wonder, will it be an offensive guy? Will this fan base be in an uproar if they drop a defensive name somewhere?
They also, well, and that's going to happen. So, I know there's a lot of Titans
know.
fans who they're hearing the word defense right now and putting a pillow over their head right now because they don't want to necessarily hear that in terms of being a head coach, but it is probably going to happen. I mean, there's not in terms of them hiring a defensive minded guy, but they're going to get some second interviews and there's going to be some defensive coordinators in the mix. I also wanted to just remember because again, this has been just a wave of interviews. Ben Johnson, the OC for the Detroit Lions, has not been interviewed yet,
That's correct.
right? Okay, I just wanted to make sure that was not something we skipped over. But yeah, so Aaron Glenn, the defensive coordinator, has been interviewed. Possibly we see him move on to the in-person interviews. But Ben Johnson, still not a name we've seen that has actually been interviewed virtually.
Aaron Glenn has not been interviewed yet.
Oh, Aaron Glenn hasn't either. Okay.
So the Titans have interviewed Brian
Okay.
Callahan, Mike Kafka, Antonio Pierce, Mike McDonald, Dan Quinn, Thomas Brown, and Bobby Slowick.
Was he requested, though, Aaron
Yes.
Glenn? Okay. Gotcha.
So 7 down so far. Again, I ran through that quickly. So
Jeez.
interviewed so far Brian Callahan, and he has been asked back for a second interview. Then guys who have only interviewed once and have not been asked back yet include Mike Kafka, the Giants OC, Raiders interim coach Antonio Pierce, Ravens defensive coordinator Mike McDonald, Cowboys defensive coordinator Dan Quinn, Panthers offensive coordinator Thomas Brown, and late last night, Texans OC Bobby Slowick.
Mm-hmm.
One note on that, too, just for fans and for all of us who are confused and just overwhelmed by all of the information. Jim Wyatt does a good job with a breakdown of every candidate at TennesseeTitans.com. And at the bottom of each of those articles, he gives the note of everyone else who was interviewed so far, too. So he has the running list going that's official from the team on everyone who has interviewed so far.
Also, there could be in his mailbox, he said there could be some additional names, and maybe one of those was David Shaw that we heard of today. I also would not hate to see a guy like Bucs OC Dave Canales, who is Ramon Foster's pick. I would like to see him get a chance to at least interview. I mean, the work he's done with quarterbacks has been really incredible.
Yes, 100%, man. I'm waiting to see where his name's going to surface at. I think he's set up. Oh, he just had the interview with Carolina and possibly Detroit. So we'll see what happens with that. It's the same names though, but it's all good quality. I think this is a good quality crop of young coordinators and coaches that we don't know a whole lot about.
Former Cardinals head coach Cliff Kingsbury expected to talk with the Chicago Bears today, and ESPN.com reporting that he is a, quote, strong candidate, or Caleb Williams is expected to receive strong consideration to become the Bears' number 1 overall pick. And with those 2 words put in ink, Justin Fields' trade value just dropped. With strong consideration for Caleb Williams to be the Bears' number 1 overall pick. If they're talking to Kingsbury, and if we're getting strong consideration tweets on January the 19th, I think that 2 might have just become a 3, in addition to maybe a first. I mean, they're not getting a top 10 pick for Justin Fields at this point. No. After that.
No. That's bad business when everybody knows what you got going on right now, right? It's just like us discussing Vrabel before he was actually let go. Like, if you're talking about a trade, if he was going to New England, which proved not to be true, right? Then you also say to yourself, why would I trade for him when the fact that he has to agree to it too? So, yeah, it's very finicky with this time of the year.
Speaking of players on the way out with new coaches, Scooby writes in, at Ramon Kayla Will, what are the chances the new coach would want Derrick Henry back? I would say 0 to 5%.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm right there. No higher than 20%, Will. That's where I'm at with you. So we're in the same odds, essentially.
Yeah, I think they're moving on from just any type of similarity to what this offense has been, or what you want to say has probably not been. And Derrick Henry has been great with what he's been able to work at and work with. But I think he's looking, too, to go to a destination maybe where he can win a Super Bowl in the next couple of years. And he said that on the Bussin' with the Boys podcast. He would have loved to win one here, obviously, but now he's got to kind of look out for himself as well. So I could see him going, in another place next season.
So my thing is on the Derrick thing. One, I know the fan base thinks he can last a long time, but how long do you think Derrick can actually last at the rate that you're asking him to? Because I just looked up Frank Gore's stuff. His last 4 years was 961, 722, 599, and 653 yards.
Right.
That's a role player's role, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, at this rate, I think he's got one more season as a full leading the NFL in carries rate. Now, with being a 1B, he's probably got 3 or 4 more good years, I would say.
Yeah.
Being a, Dalvin Cook, Melvin Gordon, playing that game of, I think he's going to bounce around teams and chase a ring, as he should. And AJ in the F&M Bank chat writes in and says, that is a false narrative. We don't even know who the hire is, nonetheless, who they are going to want. Listen to Derrick Henry on Bussin' with the Boys and tell me again that's a false narrative. Because when he says how important it is for him to go to a place where he feels like he can win a Super Bowl, the Titans could bring in prime Bill Parcells, and I would still not say that they have the best chance of going to the Super Bowl next year. So, yeah. No, it's not a false narrative. Fans can make whatever narratives they want about players they love and don't want to see in other uniforms, and I appreciate y'all's appreciation of Derrick Henry. But at some point, just because you don't like that he's going to leave doesn't mean we're making false narratives. Be smarter than that, respectfully.
Yeah.
615-737-1045. Big discussion coming up next about the quarterback position and about Titans QB Will Levis. Who is the comp that is best case scenario for the Titans for Levis? We've heard Josh Allen. We've heard other guys around the league. Who do you want Will Levis to turn into? And how does that color the Titans interviews with potential head coach candidates? Our thoughts on that next.
It's Ramon Foss for Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Here's the cool thing about Hiller, man. They've been here in business since 1990, and they are a family-owned and operated business. They're not going anywhere. They believe in a few things, and one of them is 100% satisfaction. Happy you'll be, or the service is free. If a customer isn't pleased with their work that's performed to their house or whatever they have around their home, they'll make it right. The service is free. They live by that. You can learn more about that at happyhiller.com. And when you go to happyhiller.com the same way I do, there will be a tech that comes out to your house that's professional, experienced, and trustworthy. And they will leave it cleaner and better than they found it. Of course, if you need something done, they're going to fix it the right way because care is a part of their core value. They believe that when you care about others, everybody wins. And they'll take care of the customer on every job, every single time. There's no hidden fees, no added costs, no surprises once you get your bill. That's because they live by the true transparency pricing. Everything is itemized. Nothing is hidden from you. So if you need anything done with your house, whether that be plumbing, heating, cooling, or electrical. Reach out to the folks that I trust at happyhealer.com.
Friday rolls on an RKW brewed up by 8th and Rose, streaming live at 104.5 The Zone TV. And immediately after the show ends, wherever you download podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Google Play, 1045thezone.com, 615-737-1045. What is the comp for Will Levis? We love throwing out Josh Allen. Seems like any big quarterback who throws a lot of picks but also throws a lot of touchdowns sidearm gets compared to Josh Allen. Is that the best comparison for Will Levis, or is it time to look elsewhere for a different comparison? I've got one short-term QB and one long-term QB that I think the Titans should make Will Levis become starting in 2024. But I'm curious first what you guys think. Who is the best comp for Will Levis?
Kaylee, you want to go first? I'll go first. It don't matter to me on this one. I have mine and it somewhat lines up. What do you want to do? Rock, paper, scissors for it, Kaylee?
Oh, go for it. You spoke first. Go for it.
All right, for sure. For me, I think it's short-term and long-term for both of them. And not to say that his talent is what they thought this guy's was or should be, but right now with what his team is doing, it looked like it's in that trajectory. And that guy, for me, Trevor Lawrence.
Ooh, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Trevor Lawrence. Short-term because it's the exact same pathway that he had to deal to. Now, Vrabel wasn't an Urban Meyer or anything like that, but Vrabel was also let go the same way his rookie head coach was let go in Jacksonville. Had a losing record his rookie year. So does Will Levis as a starter, right? They are making changes to build around Will Levis the same way they are trying to with Trevor Lawrence. I think Trevor Lawrence and Will Levis possess some of the same things as far as their mindset about the game. They want to be playmakers. They have strong arms. They are very athletic. You got to tell them time and time again, protect yourself. And they both, for the most part, have had somewhat of turnover issues. Although Levis is more of him just trying to be a superhero. Trevor Lawrence falls on the back to me of him just trying to do too much at times, or somehow he can't hold on to the ball when he's been sacked. So I look at their situations. If you get them a defense, which Jacksonville is building, and if you get them weapons, and it looked weird when they went out and got a suspended wide receiver, right? Or a tight end that looks to be a stud coming down the pipeline in the very near future, right? When you view those things, when it comes down to what Trevor Lawrence has done for Jacksonville, as it stands right now, he's 20-30 as a starter. But you also have to look at that situation and say that was because they had a bad record under Urban Meyer, and he's still young and growing. I look at his career and say Trevor Lawrence is probably who he lines up most with and should be competing against for a very long time if he does the stuff he's supposed to. Trevor Lawrence.
Very interesting. I like it.
Not what I would have thought, but I don't mind it.
It's a
Does it make sense?
It makes
Yeah.
You did a good thing in terms of laying it out like that, because I wouldn't have guessed that. But how you kind of put that on there, I'm like, okay, I see that.
Appreciate that. I do some cool stuff every once in a while.
You're always out of the box, and I appreciate that, because I'm probably more in the box on this, but I want to explain why I believe this still. Because coming out of the draft, like Will said, he was compared to Josh Allen a lot. Really, the physical stature of him, a bigger guy, a taller guy, physical guy, which we've all seen from Will Levis since he's gotten the nod in terms of getting the start here in Tennessee. Like, this is a guy who plays with a lot of passion. He uses his body sometimes a little bit more to his advantage than he should. But I'm okay with that if you learn to use your body and use your legs in the right moments and know when to slide. And I think that's what you are able to get from Will Levis this last year. Like, he can learn from those moments that made you scratch your head a little. Why I still kind of compare him to Josh Allen, and in terms of what Josh Allen is doing now, is with the right people around Josh Allen, I feel like you could be a quarterback who is going to be able to lead your team to the playoffs. And I feel like Josh Allen, with all the ups and downs he's had in the past with, having great play at moments, but then the interceptions have become an issue. Since Joe Brady has been promoted to offensive coordinator, I feel like they've had this offense clicking a little more than in years past, right? They're on the same page a little more. And you look at what Josh Allen does, he's relied on to do things in big moments. And I think quarterback Will Levis here for the Titans will have to do the same thing if this team is going to get to a Super Bowl. I think you're going to have to rely on Will Levis to be in those big moments and to make plays. I also like the fact that what you're seeing out of James Cook there is similar to what you could see paired up with Tajay Spears and Will Levis in the future, with, having the help of a guy like that that's so versatile, who can be a pass receiver, who also is obviously going to run the ball here. And we've seen such good things out of him. I think that duo, like we've seen with Cook and Allen this year, could be really beneficial too to what this team could do in the future.
I like it. I definitely like it. And I think in terms of his mobility, Josh Allen, from an athleticism standpoint, is the best comparison for Will Levis. I mean, Mike Keith said it on our show last year before the Titans played the Bills. Josh Allen is a single-wing tailback from back in the day who in 2024 plays quarterback. Yeah. Best way to describe him. I'm going to go, I'm going to have a little bit of a cop-out here, but I promise you, bear with me, it's going to make sense. I have a short-term and a long-term aim for Will Levis. And in 2024, guys, I'm going to throw something out at you. I'm workshopping this opinion. And the more I dive into it, the more I think it makes sense. The best-case scenario for the Tennessee Titans in 2024 is to be the Green Bay Packers. Jordan Love is my short-term comparison for Will Levis. Mm-hmm. My long-term comparison is Matthew Stafford on the quarterback that I think Will Levis needs to turn into. And I have one specific reason why. In 2023, on passing attempts of more than 30-plus yards, the top three quarterbacks share something very important in common. Number one was Brock Purdy, 31 passing attempts of 30-plus yards. Number two, Matthew Stafford, 28 passing attempts of 30-plus yards. Number three, Jordan Love, 27 passing attempts of 30-plus yards. What is the one thing those three quarterbacks have in common? They all come from offenses derived from the Shanahan, McVay, and LaFleur coaching tree. And I think that is the direction the Titans are heading when you look at the candidates they're interviewing and you look at Rand Carthon's experience in San Francisco. That is where the Titans are heading. They want to be Silicon Valley, San Francisco, fun, entertaining, analytics-driven offensive football. Jordan Love, to me, is the short-term comparison because look at all of his weapons that he had at his disposal this past season when he was second in QBR over the second half of the year. Aaron Jones at running back is the comp for Tajay Spears. People that have talked about Tajay Spears over the last year and a half, when you speak about him, they say, we think he is a younger Aaron Jones. That is as good of a comparison as you could make for what Tajay Spears is coming in as the 1A running back for the Titans in 2024. But look at their top four pass catchers starting for them this weekend when they go to San Francisco to take on Brock Purdy, Kyle Shanahan, and San Fran. Romeo Doubs, second-year wide receiver out of Nevada. Dontavian Wicks, rookie out of Virginia. Jaden Reed, rookie out of Michigan State. And tight end Luke Musgrave, a rookie out of Oregon State. Guys, there is a scenario for the Titans next year where you are throwing, if you're Will Levis, to all first and second year weapons in your offense. Josh Wiley at tight end, Chig Okonkwo in his third season, Traylon Burks in his third season, maybe DeAndre Hopkins. I'd say that's a toss-up right now until we know who the head coach is. And then whoever else you are able to add in free agency or in the draft at wide receiver as well. So you think about a team that has all young players, has a young, unproven quarterback who this time last year, we didn't know what Jordan Love was. We had no idea he was going to turn into this. Best case scenario is in the second half of the season, the Titans get hot because Will Levis is the guy, and the first and second year weapons they took risks on turn out to be good. I know I'm rambling and I'm long-winded here, but again, bear with me. Matthew Stafford long-term to me makes the most sense because of the Liam Cohen and the Sean McVay connection. Mm-hmm. And if Liam Cohen is on this staff next year, it's because, A, the Titans want to take Will Levis's junior year, extrapolate that over the course of an entire career, and they want to recreate what Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay have had in L.A. Matthew Stafford is mobile, but not a runner. He's not quite Josh Allen in the way they use him, but they roll him out of the pocket. He can throw from different arm slots. The sidearm is there. The deep ball is there. When Matthew Stafford is at his best, it's because the Rams are running the football well, they're accurate in play action, and he is bombing the football down the field to those wide receivers. That is where Matthew Stafford is at his best. I think Will Levis and Matthew Stafford is the perfect one-to-one comparison on who they want him to be.
Yeah.
Down the road, you're saying. When
Right.
a little bit growth and maturity and everything. Yes, 100%. The other thing that you're getting to from, I think, all the teams that we brought up is balance also.
Yeah.
It's not just heavily relied upon the quarterback in their arms. I think all of us mentioned the weapons that both these offenses have. And not just that, the defensive side of it too. Green Bay, to your point, Will, about saying about Jordan Love being the guy too, is also supported by a defense. They have balance on both sides of it. So when you're talking about building something that's sustainable, as far as these teams go and these quarterbacks and how you support them, the same way that we rave about how good a coach is, the coaches are only as good as his players. The quarterback is only as good as his supporting cast too. And you mentioned those running backs on all the teams that we have. You mentioned the wide receivers that you don't know. This is what a quarterback to me shines in all of these moments right here, is if you can get those wide receivers, to your point about Green Bay, their leading wide receivers, Jaden Reed, Romeo Dobbs, Dontavius Wicks, and Christian Watson. The true test of a quarterback is if you take those names and nobody knows a household name and you make them household names.
Mm-hmm.
Quarterbacks, to me, that's where the biggest check mark is made. How many guys did you get paid? And you look here in Nashville, okay, real quick. How many guys have the quarterbacks in Nashville gotten wide receivers paid?
I mean, the only one that's gone elsewhere and gotten paid is Corey Davis with the Jets.
There we go.
And that was Ryan Tannehill that got him that. And then A.J. Brown went somewhere else and got paid. But again, that wasn't even free agency. That was a trade that after the trade was made, then the contract was signed.
I wanted to bring up, too, because I like what you're talking about with Jordan Love. The one thing that I'll say about that in terms of Jordan Love and the growth, that he's been able to have that opportunity to grow as a quarterback. And that's so rare in this day and age. It really does make you wonder, how much did he really get out of that with being the backup for those 3 seasons?
Right.
I think because we're seeing him now so much more mature, and it's not like he's 28 years old. It's not like he wasted his whole career behind the bench. How much do you see from a guy like that actually got to learn a little bit under a guy like, Aaron Rodgers? Will Levis got a little bit of an option or a chance to do that here behind Ryan Tannehill. He was thrown in pretty quickly, 6 games in. But I do always wonder that, and I don't know if we'll ever know, how much was he able to really fully develop as a quarterback?
And honestly, you could make the argument too, real quick, Ramon, that the best comp for Will Levis is when Ryan Tannehill was dealing as the quarterback of the Tennessee Titans. Will Levis has spoken about that just in the lead up to the draft, that he admired Ryan Tannehill. And I think that was the best case scenario for Rand Carthon and Mike Vrabel and Amy Adams-Strunk was, you've got a year of Tannehill to allow Levis to take a redshirt year, and maybe even a second one. If you wanted to, if Ryan Tannehill had been good this year, you probably would have brought him back in something short term in 2024. Obviously, he wasn't great. He couldn't play behind this line. The issues are well documented. But I agree with you, Kayla. That would have been the ideal scenario, is Levis sits for a year plus behind Ryan.
Yeah. And Kayla, you mentioned, as far as Jordan Love concerned, it's not like he wasted away. You're right. Here's the thing too about all of those quarterbacks is it's about 3 years. And here's the thing: we can't microwave their development as fast as we wanted to. There will probably be a little bit of a drawback with some. You're going to see more veteran-like things from him. You expect to see more veteran-like things for him in year 3. Just looking at Trevor Lawrence's career so far, rookie year is very friggin' similar to where Will Levis was.
Yeah.
Trevor Lawrence, over 17 games, his completion percentage was 59.6%. If I'm not mistaken, Will Levis is about 58%.
58, yep.
The second year jump for Trevor Lawrence is 66.3% with over 4,000 yards passing. And that's the year last year they won the AFC South. He had 25 touchdowns and 8 interceptions. This year's a little bit of a drawback, drop about 0.5% at 65.6%, 4,000 yards. But here's where he had a step back. And I think that's where you got to grow and mature a little bit more as a quarterback. He has this year in 16 games because of injuries, and he didn't complete almost every game. Well, some of those games, either in the 16 out of 17. But he had 21 touchdowns and 14 interceptions. That interception number going up right there is what became more bothersome for him. But also, when you win the AFC South, when you get good, you think you're supposed to do more. You got to let your weapons grow for you in these moments like that. And I think that's where Trevor Lawrence has to grow. And I hope that's also where Will Levis, when he gets better and gets the offensive coordinator and weapons around him, that you realize just find your guy, let them work for you, and take whatever's in front of you. You ain't got to be a hero every single time that you're out there. And I think that's what Trevor Lawrence failed to this year, which also I think correlated to his injuries too.
Well, I agree. Ramon, I think the injuries had a significant reason on why he maybe took a step back. Maybe he was even trying to do too much with those injuries, right? And so I don't think you can just take this year and be like, oh, this is a quarterback who's not going to move in the right direction. I just feel like he's been such a tough player in the past, had never missed like a game at Clemson. He had that mindset. Now we're in the league. Like, this is the big boys club. You got to learn that when you got an injury, sometimes you got to just take some time off so it doesn't get worse.
Yep, absolutely.
It is just interesting, too. You talk about the hero ball thing, too. And for Trevor Lawrence, how much of his career will forever be tainted by Urban Meyer? How many of the issues he's having now are because he had Urban? Or is this just maybe him not being as much of a can't-miss prospect as we expected?
That first year was terrible.
Yeah.
They went 3-14 that first year. And you got to think about this. That first impression, people always bring that up, right? As far as his growth and development, and getting behind and under that stench right there may take a little bit longer. That's the reason they're questioning Peterson and Jacksonville right now, because, it's supposed to all be cured.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen that quick.
I think, too, the last point to make on that and why I like the Trevor comparison is the Titans could go on a spending spree the way the Jaguars did 2 years ago this offseason when they brought in Christian Kirk, Zay Jones, and Calvin Ridley all at the same time, and Evan Ingram. I mean, there's a chance you could add you could go the Packers direction and have all first and second year guys, or you could draft, or you could assign all of them. But I like both your comparisons. They're good.
Good stuff.
Coming up, more news this morning that just broke on who the Titans will interview today. Details next.
Hey, it's Kayla Anderson. Don't go another year with that awful joint pain. Go ahead and give QC Kinetics a call right now and make 2024 the year you're living your life normal again. QC Kinetics can give you your life back, and they are the nation's leader in regenerative medicine. They're all natural treatments that can repair and restore that damaged tissue, giving you pain-free movement once again. Everybody wants that, especially this time of year. Maybe you're feeling that arthritis pop up in this cold weather. This is the solution and the long-term solution. Maybe you have pain, like I mentioned, from an old injury. You need to check it out. The future of medicine is here. Regenerative treatments from QC Kinetics. Make the call now so you can get the most out of this new year and really get back to what you love doing. Don't forget, you can use those HSA and FSA funds and call them now at 615-249-4024. It's QC Kinetics at 615-249-4024.
RKW is brewed by 8th and Roast on 104.5 The Zone. 615-737-1045 is our number. Coming up at 9:20, Aditi Kinkhabwala of CBS Sports and Westwood 1 will join us. She will be on the sidelines with Mike Mayock and Kevin Harlan for Westwood 1's coverage in Buffalo of Bills and Chiefs. We'll see if Aditi can or cannot confirm if she will be jumping on a table before the broadcast on the weekend.
Or shoveling snow. You guys see they requested more snow
Yeah.
Did they?
shovelers in Buffalo.
Okay.
Again?
Yes.
Bunch of beggars? Golly, you're $1 billion. No, I'm kidding.
I think they get
fair.
tickets, though.
Buffalo
I think
for
if you
Yeah.
volunteer to go shovel snow, you get, at least that's the way the Packers operate.
Yeah.
I know the Packers will give you tickets if you come help them
Interesting.
shovel snow.
Buffalo was offering $20 an hour.
Oh, dang, I'm about to quit. Gotta go over to Buffalo,
Go
man.
over there for the weekend, earn some more money. Dang.
Hey, station, I can't come to work Monday. Oh, why not? I decided to switch jobs and shovel snow for the Buffalo Bills.
I'm a show snubbler.
Nobody shovels the wagons like the Buffalo Bills.
Yep.
Jonathan
You're
Jones is
sore.
CBS Sports tweeting this morning, just a few minutes ago, the Titans will talk with Lions defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn today.
Okay. There we go.
Big time.
We talked about that today. We were like, we know they had requested to talk to him, but has he gone yet? Here's your answer. So you're wondering maybe if Ben Johnson will be the next one to check off their list in terms of that virtual interview.
That would bring them
And-
down to 3 candidates left whom they have requested and not yet spoken to.
Okay.
No doubt about it. And also to be noted, Aditi Kinkhabwala, who's joining us at 9:20, knows Callahan very well. And
Brian
also
Callahan,
said
you
to me
mean
that
the-
she's very impressed by Thomas Brown. And I'm sure there's
Okay.
others that she is very fluent with also, especially if you're talking about AFC North guys too. So we'll see. And she's covered everywhere. So definitely pick her brain on some of that. And had a very interesting article too about what type of coach to hire. Talked about Bert's fan base's coach, man. It'd be interesting to see what she thinks about that.
Wow.
Out of the defensive coaches, who do you think would make the best coach? Of the defensive coaches the Titans have asked to speak to.
I've learned the
I don't know.
most about Aaron Glenn just recently, just because of, we had Peyton on from A to Z Sports Detroit. I thought he gave good perspective in terms of the leader he is. And obviously some people will look to the numbers and say it hasn't been spectacular in terms of their defense, but I think he would be one of the guys on the top of the list, and then Mike McDonald.
Mike
Yeah,
McDonald is one of the
I-
other ones. Dan Quinn would be the other.
Right.
Yeah, Dan Quinn's, he's an out for me, Will. I feel the same way as you do. He's probably 9 or 10 on my list, which is probably why he'll get hired here, because my betting odds are all wrong at all times. But Aaron Glenn is the one that sticks out the most to me. And just selfishly, honestly, it's just me. I'm tired of the retread with coaches, watching them get hired, give us a bunch of hope, and then they fell again. I kind of want to see somebody else take a stab at it here and build this thing up.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I would say Mike McDonald is maybe the defensive coach I would like the most
Mm-hmm.
in terms of just what he's been able to do there and his experience within that Ravens organization. I mean, he's kind of been raised in the 2 gold standard teams in college football and in, well, really 3 when you consider his Michigan experience and his Georgia experience, having been around that building and having played there. And then Baltimore, and the way they acquire talent and just the process in which the Ravens hit on so many of their draft picks over the years, and the legacy of Ozzie Newsome that continues in that organization. It is the way to sustain success in this league. And that, to me, is my first question to Mike McDonald in an interview with him is, what have you learned about acquiring talent and scouting within the draft from that organization? Because they do it better than anybody.
It's fair. I think you learned a lot from your time in a winning organization. And you could say, oh, well, he's only kind of been in one spot. But it's a spot where they've been so consistent. And even learning from the experience this year with, on the offensive side of the ball, like changing that offense a little bit with that hiring. And I think that's what you want. You want somebody who can maybe come from a winning culture. If you're going to take a defensive guy, I think that could be the bonus for Mike McDonald is you just know like that experience is invaluable.
The one thing
this crop of candidates is by far, I think, far beyond almost any era in this recent coaching hire. There's some good people coming out of it.
There are, and the cautionary tale I think we need to tell Titans fans is that if the Ravens give up 30 points or if the Texans score 0 points, like, do not base your thoughts on the Titans hiring a head coach based off of what happens in the divisional round of the playoffs. And I think that's even still fair with Dan Quinn, that like Dan Quinn is not a bad candidate because the Packers shredded them in the wild card round. He's not the best candidate because he failed in Atlanta, and what's to say he's not going to fail at his next stop too, because it hasn't really been that long since he failed last time, right? Like, I just get wary of, like, oh, well, but Bobby Slowick and the Texans had such a fun game to watch. You know, bring him here. Like, you are looking at 0.1% of a guy's resume, and it's important, right? Like, it counts, the playoffs do, and how you perform on the biggest stage, but it is maybe 1% of the entire criteria.
Yeah, I agree.
615-737-1045. More of your reaction and phone calls. We'll review something interesting Brent Hubbs had to say earlier this morning about a 5-star Tennessee target who is scheduled to commit next week and what it could mean for the Vols moving forward in the class of 2025. Noteworthy stuff from him that we'll recap. We'll reset the headlines around the league where Mike Vrabel is talking to teams and has interest from 3 teams specifically. Details on that next as Hour 4 begins.
What's going on? It ain't even 9 o'clock yet. You're just before it at the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I'm Robert Walsh. Big news from yesterday. Los Angeles Chargers completed their interview with former Titans head coach Mike Vrabel. Chargers have been in discussion with former Stanford head coach David Shaw, who also interviewed with the Titans yesterday. Bengals offensive coordinator Brian Callahan, Leslie Frazier, and Jim Harbaugh, all in the running for that Chargers job. We got a late news dump last night as two more coaches completed their interview in Tennessee. We had one last night and a couple announcements today. Bobby Slowick, Houston offensive coordinator, completed his interview yesterday. We learned today that David Shaw, Aaron Glenn, and Brian Johnson, Eagles offensive coordinator, would also be interviewing with the Titans. In Carolina, the Panthers completed their interview with Bucs offensive coordinator Dave Canales for the head coaching position. But it wasn't just interviews. Some people were hired, as former Texans head coach Bill O'Brien, hired as Ohio State's new offensive coordinator, spent last year in New England with the Patriots, being their offensive coordinator. The move comes with a potential shift within the Ohio State program, as Ryan Day sought out an experienced coach that would allow him to give up on play calling duties. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
3 hours down and one more to go. Beginning your Friday morning on RKW. We are brewed up by 8th and Roast, where the Titans have two more interviews yesterday virtually and have scheduled two more today. Aaron Glenn speaking with Amy Adams-Strunk, Rand Carthon of the Titans organization today, and David Shaw, the former Stanford head coach, the all-time winningest head coach in the history of the Cardinal, added to the list as candidate number 11. With 11-year NFL veteran Ramon Foster, with Kayla Anderson, Robert Walsh, I'm Will Bowling. 615-737-1045 is our number. Streaming live on Facebook Live, YouTube, Twitter, or Twitch. And Ramon Foster is muted once again on
Twitch,
Zoom.
please.
I'll say it myself, or maybe I will not. Kayla Anderson beating us to the punch and continuing the legacy that Don Davenport created years ago on 3HL. A streaming experience unrivaled in Nashville and beyond.
Wait, it's Dolly's birthday? Real quick.
Oh, I don't know.
It's
I don't
Dolly
keep up
Parton's
with birthdays
birthday.
like you do.
Look at that. Sorry. Had to give her a shout out.
Ramon's still muted on Zoom, if we can remedy that.
I'm not muted. Oh,
There he is.
man.
Yeah, you are muted.
There he is.
So I should just do all of the stereotypical Zoom things. Is everybody here? Or do we want to start? We will wait till everybody's on the meeting. All right, does everybody see my screen? Okay, everybody having a good one? All right, here we go. All right, we're going to finish early. I'll give you 5 minutes back, all right? Thanks so much, guys. Okay. All right. Oh, Donna, I think you're muted. Okay. What you got? Okay, thanks so much.
I don't miss the Zoom days. Let me just tell you that. Oof.
Me either. I'll
Man.
be real with you. I do not miss them at all either.
We did a whole season with Titans interviews over Zoom. Like, it was so wild.
We did?
So wild.
Well, it looked like a lot of locker rooms across the league are getting it back now, though. The in-person stuff, I did hear that was a major gripe of most media. They were afraid they weren't going to get the locker room access back.
Yep.
And some have still somewhat have it limited, but hey, you do what you want when it's your business, right?
Do what you want when you popping.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, buddy.
Mike Vrabel met with the Chargers yesterday. That's
Yes, he
interesting. It comes down to a Michigan man and an Ohio State guy for the future mentor of Justin Herbert.
The game.
To me, if I'm Mike Vrabel, that is the job that I want. And if I'm any candidate, the Chargers are number one in terms of most attractive landing spots for head coaches.
You sure about that?
Yes, I am.
But the Chargers don't intrigue me as much.
I have two reasons. Justin
Okay.
Herbert. That's the reason. It is he is by far the best quarterback available to pair your career to, and bad quarterbacks get head coaches fired in the National Football League. Justin Herbert is an elite quarterback if everything is right around him.
So what you're saying is the quarterback is the biggest draw, right? That's the biggest draw.
That would be a draw.
Fan base
yes.
doesn't bother you. Lack of support.
No.
The idea that you are, what are they, after SC, after the Rams, after the Lakers, you're the other team. That
that's
doesn't
fine.
bother you as a coach?
That's fine. No, not at all.
I would say it's not off the list for me. And if you're Mike Vrabel, I think this is interesting too. It just so happens to be that he's now emerging in terms of not necessarily a favorite for these jobs, but he's starting to get interviews. And he was mentioned, I believe, also interest with having the Seahawks and the Falcons per Adam Schefter.
That's correct.
So I think between all of those jobs, I think that Bill Belichick's going to the Falcons. But again, I'm going to stand on my notion of why not, if you're the Falcons, if you're interested in Bill Belichick. I know he has Super Bowls, but in the past 3 years, we've not seen the same type of Bill Belichick head coach as we have when Tom Brady was there. Why not do something similar in a younger guy like Mike Vrabel? I get the Arthur Smith tie, and maybe that's too close for comfort, right, this early on. But I wouldn't count out the Seahawks either. I feel like they've got a really nice organization. The management is intact there. I know Geno Smith isn't the long-term answer, but you have an opportunity to possibly draft a quarterback this year. So I would look at that too, because the only thing with the Chargers, I love the quarterback situation, guys, but the cap issue is the only thing I have an issue with there.
Doesn't matter to me.
Yeah.
I'd rather have cap trouble and Justin Herbert than have a lot of money and not have Justin Herbert, personally.
Of those jobs, I would Carolina's the worst one I would take, although they probably give you a blank canvas to work with. Chargers ain't high on my list, and I respect your stance on it though too, Will, with Justin Herbert. I just question their operation and involvement has been they've underperformed. And maybe that was their former coach. So I'll take that for what it's worth.
Where does Vegas fit into that discussion? I know Antonio Pierce is probably the guy there, but according to Spot Track, they've got $43 million available to them. And you do have the opportunity to bring in your own QB and kind of do your own thing there. It feels like Vegas is always going to be the free agent / trade candidate quarterback landing spot, because Mark Davis always wants to go for it and try to find a retread guy that's going to make sense there, like you just did with Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah. Vegas is a good destination. They got everything that you want. They got the indoor, they got the facilities, they got ownership that wants to win immediately. You know you can go do that. And to your point, you can go get the quarterback of your dreams too with this staff. They have a history in which winning has to be on the forefront of what they want to do. I like the idea that you can build that team up better than you can in your ways. The Chargers. I'd actually put the Raiders job ahead of the Chargers game to me. I mean, the Chargers job, in my opinion. You get the West Coast without having the West Coast Bills too.
Yeah, and look, Las Vegas is becoming a sports hub. I didn't see this 10 years ago in any way. I mean, you get hockey there, like that's saying something, and they support it there. Now you've got the NFL team, you're getting Major League Baseball. Like that is becoming a sports hub for sure, and a place where you can win. They're the Aces, the women's NBA WNBA team won a championship. So I think it's a good place to go right now in terms of sports, and the money is there. The only reason why I'm not saying a lot about it, and I know we're not hearing maybe more candidates being brought up there, is because I really do think they're hiring James Pierce. I think they are.
Antonio Pierce.
Or Antonio Pierce. I'm sorry. Yeah, Antonio Pierce. Like, I think that's really why not a lot of people are mentioning other names. But I think, Vrabel would probably be interested in that destination as well.
Taylor, you say James Pierce, so Go Balls got to come after that. Okay?
Yeah. There we go.
Interesting. So there's a story on Yahoo Sports about this from Charles Robinson on executives and people around the league ranking openings from least to most attractive that I think is interesting. Jory Epstein and Charles Robinson writing this yesterday afternoon. 1 to 7 openings. Where do you think the Titans rank on this list?
4.
What article was this, Will?
Yahoo Sports, Charles Robinson, and Jory Epstein writing, coaches and executives pick the league's least to most attractive openings.
5?
Number 6 out of 7.
Oh, man.
Yep.
Number 6 out of 7. Okay.
They say Carolina and Tennessee are both coordinator hires for head coach openings. One polled executive said, neither will get someone like Harbaugh because of how the owners have been all over the place. Wow, I almost said Harbaugh and Vrabel. Obviously, Tennessee fired Mike, so you can cross off the experienced head coaches who already know what they're doing from that place. What a weird job that is, one executive says to Yahoo Sports.
And I know The Athletic also ranked it 6 out of 7 yesterday. Mike Sando.
The Athletic, Yahoo has Chargers as the second best opening and the Commanders as the number 1 opening. And Washington, I think, is a valid answer because, to me, it's 2 because it's riskier because you're going to draft your quarterback immediately upon getting the job, and there's risk involved in that. However, I think those are the top 2 openings, and then it's everyone else.
Yeah. I'll be honest. I can be cocky about it. I was cocky about saying that I thought the Raiders' job was a little bit better because I think when you go to a place like that, the expectation lays itself out for you. And most coaches are going to believe that the guy that they picked that's going to be their franchise quarterback is going to be the one that walks them to a Super Bowl too. So I get that number 1 and number 2. And Washington's front office now has completely changed. So we're going to see how that looks as far as how they rebuild themselves back up.
Yeah, I think the unknown of Josh Harris as the owner in Washington is why I hesitate to make that number 1. We don't know anything about him.
Mm-hmm.
No.
And it's all new. Like the whole front office is new. And it's like that might work in certain places, but will it work in a place like that? Like there are question marks still. I know it's kind of you're starting anew, but sometimes that's not perfect for every candidate. So it's also got to be the right candidate who gets that job.
Yeah,
Interesting, this Yahoo post about the Titans when they write more about this, and yahoosports.com where you can find it. One executive in the league was polled as saying, Amy fired a damn good coach and leader. What else was Vrabel supposed to do? How much more could he be than that? Moves like that are usually some politics inside the building, ding, 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 or some kind of problem between a coach and an owner. That should be the first warning light about working there.
I think you can have those issues and also clean it up on the back end.
Right.
There's some truth probably in what he's saying.
Sure. That to me is someone from the outside looking in without the full details of what happened.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that's why people inside that building are primary sources and people outside the building making speculative remarks around the league are secondary sources. And that to me is something written based on secondary sources. Because when has Amy Adams Strunk made a decision like this that ended up being the wrong one?
Right. And look, sometimes you don't have to take sides. I love how everybody wants to assume that, we're taking sides. The national media, it does seem to take sides a little bit with Vrabel in this situation. But I look at this situation, the more and more that has come out about it with Amy Adams Strunk and Mike Vrabel is, I think it was probably the best decision just for both of them at this point of their careers and as an owner of this organization. Like Amy had to do what she had to do because she didn't see the vision line up with Vrabel anymore. And for Vrabel, I feel like he can get a fresh start somewhere. It doesn't mean he's not going to be a good head coach. Do y'all forget he won here too? I think it's funny. Like people think taking sides has to be the issue. I think it might have been the best thing for both of these people.
The last thing I'll say about too is that coaches don't worry about, oh, what if I get fired prematurely? That's not the brain chemistry of someone who's confident enough to put millions of dollars on the line, who probably put their bodies on the line as a player. Like people always in the coaching profession will think, I'm so good, I'm going to be the one to fix it and succeed. We are mere mortals, and Ramon not really because he was a pro athlete for 11 years in the NFL. But us mere mortals think about, do I really want to go to this situation? What if I get fired by someone who has a track record of firing people quickly? I don't think coaches think that way.
Mm-hmm.
These alpha male dudes that made millions of dollars throwing, catching, and hitting people with footballs don't think about how they're going to get fired. They're thinking about how they're going to win a Super Bowl there.
Yep.
Coming up next, CBS Sports reporter and sideline reporter Aditi Kinkhabwala will join us. She will be on the 104.5 The Zone airwaves this upcoming weekend as the Bills take on the Chiefs, courtesy of Westwood One. We'll get her wardrobe plan handling a Buffalo playoff game in January, and we'll get her thoughts on a number of AFC North candidates for the Titans opening and her initial reaction to Mike Vrabel losing his job here in Nashville. All that and more with Aditi Kinkhabwala coming up next. Rolling right along in hour number 4 on a Friday morning edition of RKW, brewed up by 8th and Roast, and we welcome in one of our very favorite guests. You see her everywhere. You hear her everywhere. You can read her work as well on CBSSports.com. Aditi Kinkhabwala stopping by for a Friday conversation. What's up, Aditi? How are you?
That was a heck of a plug. Thanks so much, my friend.
Absolutely. You are welcome. And again, plug what you are doing this weekend, because you are going to be in one of the coldest places in the world, right?
So I thought Kansas City last week was brutal. I mean, and I'll be honest with you, I was crying even before I got through the parking lot, like literally crying, tears coming down my face. I was so cold. And now I am rewarded with Buffalo, where apparently they're going to have had 70 inches of snow by the time Saturday gets here in this 1 week. And I think it's going to be about 12 degrees. So, but I won't be on television. I will be on radio on Westwood 1. So if I am wearing a balaclava and totally bundled up and look like Ramon Foster did back in the Pittsburgh Steelers days. Ramon, you never wore sleeves, though, did you? Were you one of those weird guys that insisted on short sleeves?
See, you call us weird that didn't wear sleeves. We were the majority for the most part.
Here we go.
You couldn't wear sleeves. Come on now.
You know what? So Tyreek Hill, I see Tyreek Hill run out to warm up. And I'm like, Tyreek, where are your sleeves? And he goes, I don't need none. And he says, I'm tough. And you know what I said, Kayla? I said, I've had 2 babies. I know how tough I am.
Amen.
I don't need
Amen.
to be sleeveless to prove that I'm tough.
That is awesome.
I don't know. But anyway, I'm of course excited, not only because my son is a member of Bill's Mafia, but because I love those fans. I love fans that are loyal and have been waiting forever. And, you know, Deion Dawkins made the point this week that Patrick Mahomes has played in Buffalo, but never in front of Bill's Mafia. And that's a totally different experience.
It's a good point. It is a great point, and it is going to be a fun one. So you hear Aditi now on our airwaves, then you will hear her this weekend as well on our airwaves, courtesy of Westwood 1 with Kevin Harlan and Mike Mayock. Aditi, I have to give one little plug locally real quick as well, that I went to school with Dawson Knox for 6 years as well, and we graduated together. So tell him I said hello if you see him, because he will also be one of the, I say this friendly Dawson, I know his family's probably listening, one of the idiots probably not wearing sleeves as well.
Well, those tight ends, they've certainly been having some fun up there. So you and Dawson were buddies? Is that what you're telling me?
We went through 7th grade through senior year of high school together. And, good friend. He's
wow.
I had friends up there, principals and like teachers go up there from time to time. Great family. One of the greatest guys that I know.
All right. Well, all fair. You'll have to give me a little nugget that I can drop in the broadcast.
Ooh.
That if his parents are, this is terrible though, guys, because the game's on CBS, which is my home. So it's not like I can say, oh, listen to the radio instead of watching CBS. Maybe they should keep the CBS on camera, but listen to Kevin Mayock and me on the radio.
Absolutely.
Does that work?
Yes.
Yep, that works.
All right, so are you stressed about this head coaching thing, or are you super excited about the new blood?
We were going to ask you the same thing, Aditi, because we spoke about Mike Vrabel's job security as hey, let's throw this in at the end. Maybe this is something that could happen, right? At the end of our last conversation, but we didn't think this was going to materialize until obviously things get louder and louder. And then the Sunday, the last game of the season, it's, okay, crap, this might be a legitimate thing that's happening. From everything we have learned about this fiasco here in Tennessee, Aditi, what stands out to you the most, and what was your initial reaction to that news?
Shock. I was wrong. Was I not wrong? Because when we talked about it, I was like, no, he's one of the best coaches in the league, which he still is, and his players play for him. And unfortunately, if your boss, coaching is in a lot of ways like the media industry, and it can be subjective. And if someone doesn't love you anymore, they don't love you anymore. So I am sure I spoke to, in fact, a former coach who had talked to Vrabel that very night. I am sure that Mike Vrabel is going to land in a place that he wants to land. And if he doesn't, he will not have a problem waiting for the right fit because he knows exactly who he is. I am sorry, there's 6 inches of snow here in Pittsburgh, and my daughter apparently does not want to bundle up, which she's learning from her son.
Just like me growing up, Aditi. No coat.
I just am. I'm curious about the direction that the Titans will go in now. And you look at this list of candidates, and Will, you mentioned that I wrote on CBSSports.com, and the piece that I actually wrote was, why don't special coordinators get more of a look? Why don't special teams coordinators get more of a look? And you look at John Harbaugh, and the argument I made was that nobody else touches every other player on the team. Nobody else, every single time he's coaching on the field, is coaching 22 guys at a time. Like, think about it. The tight ends coach has 3 guys over on the side. The running backs coach only has a few. Nobody else needs to know players on both sides of the ball. Nobody else has to adjust and account for roster changes and figure out people's special talents, command a room, all of those things. And so I see these young coaches, like, let's talk about a guy named Bobby Slowick, who's certainly put in his time. I mean, I met him a dozen years ago when he was in Washington in that great Mike Shanahan staff. He's done tremendous things with C.J. Stroud and the Texans offense this year. But there's a piece of you that's also like, okay, so he's been an offensive coordinator for 1 year. That makes you ready to lead a team? Maybe. And Thomas Brown is a guy that, it's funny, Ramon, he walked into our room and I was like, oh my gosh, he's Mike Tomlin all over again. He has no indoor voice. He's very strong in his principles, just like Bobby is. And please, I'm not knocking Bobby Slowick in any way, but it's just we're always looking at the same things. And I'll refer to a line that John Harbaugh gave me. He said, every head coach in some way is a unicorn. You have to be every successful head coach is a unicorn in some way. So if you're looking for the next unicorn, why do these owners keep looking where the horses are? And it feels like in this hiring cycle, so many of the candidates are kind of similar. Someone who ran a really good offense and was a really good play caller. I like that the Titans are mixing it up a little bit. I love the idea of David Shaw. Everything I've ever heard about David Shaw is that he's a great leader of men, and in many ways similar to a Jim Caldwell. I like that Aaron Glenn is getting some looks because I love what he's done and the way that players play for him and the experience that he has. I think in Tennessee, the fact that Coach Vrabel was a player for so long and knew exactly what those guys went through and knew how the ecosystem of a locker room matters so much. All of those, I think, are valuable things. But again, not to cut out anybody who wasn't a player in the league. I'm just getting myself in trouble. Can someone cut me off so I can stop talking for a little while?
It sounds like your daughter was trying to.
The problem is that when you talk, you sometimes are saying, well, am I backing myself into the corner? And how does this sound right here?
I get it.
But, I mean, you guys do it for a living every day. Do you get over it at some point? Are you kind of like, I'm not really worried?
No, and
you have to, Aditi, because that's the thing. When you do this for a profession, as a job, a career, stuff is ever changing the same way that it changed very fast. On us having a conversation with Vrabel is safe, I can see an idea of him getting fired. Most people, I think we had Vrabel hot seat at a 2 or 3, which is not hot at all. Heck, the stove just turned on, right? I have to ask you, Aditi, from a national perspective, how did you view Vrabel as a coach? You know, that you've said, and almost everybody else has said, when it comes down to these head coaching candidates, leaders of men, you know, and then you look at Vrabel, you say the same thing. You said the same thing about the other candidates, right, that you've somewhat talked about. What does it mean, and why couldn't, from your perspective, or how could you understand Vrabel being let go here in Nashville as a part of that too?
So that's such a compound question. I'll say this. I think that, it's funny. I talked to Coach Cowher, Bill Cowher, who, of course, won a Super Bowl with the Steelers and is in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I talked to him last week, and he said to me, 80% of – we were still talking about this special teams thing because Coach Cowher was a special teams coordinator, but he said that 80% of coaching, of being a great head coach, is motivational, and 20% is tactical. That it's really not about the scheme, that the best head coaches are not slaves to schemes. They're thinking about players and putting their players in position to succeed and everything along those lines. And when I sit here and I think about Mike Vrabel, I'll give you an example from the last game that I was at. The Titans obviously had won that phenomenal game against the Dolphins, that really signature win for Will Levis. Monday night. They come back, they're home, and they're playing the Texans, who are starting Case Keenum. And as much as people say, oh, there's no such thing as a hangover, there's no such thing as a letdown, it is a real thing, right? Like, it is a real thing. And I think that Mike Vrabel sort of picked up on where his team's energy was. And if you recall, very early in that game, there was a fourth down deep in their own territory. And forgive me because there's been a lot of games since then. I want to say it was like a 4th and 2 at like their own 26, something like that. You guys know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
Just familiar? Okay. Thank you, Kayla. So anyway, Vrabel on the sideline goes for it. And in a vacuum, you would think that's just such an insane move. But it's not. He wanted to juice his team. He wanted to juice his players. He wanted to get them fired up. And he felt like they needed a little something. And the Titans converted. And that, to me, is a moment where your head coach is reading the room. He's reading his players. He knows what his players need beyond just a great play call, if that makes any sense. Are you with me? Or
yes.
am I
Absolutely.
going into the ether?
No, you are making complete sense.
Thank you, Kayla. So I think that coaching is not only about, how often are you blitzing? What are you doing with your safeties? Are you running the ball this percentage of the time on first down? It's not just that. It's knowing what gets your guys going. It's knowing how to get your guys going. It's knowing when they need to be gotten. It's knowing who needs to be disciplined in a certain way and who needs a little extra slack today. It's all of those things. And when I look at Mike Vrabel, and I especially think about last year when he really had no wide receivers, those teams played hard, at least from my perspective, right? Like, you guys are there every single week. You know better than me. But from the outside looking in, it certainly feels like Mike Vrabel teams play hard. They may be not as talented. They may not have all the pieces. And I'll go back to, not having any wide receiver ones a year ago. But they play hard. And that, to me, is a testament to the coach.
Aditi Kinkhabwala, CBS Sports and Westwood 1, our guest.
Aditi, and I agree with you on that. And I think what fans are really frustrated with here was just, I guess, the last 2 years losing seasons. They didn't like a lot of him in terms of like his coordinator, I guess, hires or promotions. And so I think it goes deeper for the fans. But you do see in a head coach, and that's what they've said here with Amy Adams-Strunk, like they still want a leader of men. And that is why I feel like Vrabel will get a job somewhere else. Where do you feel like a guy like him is going to end up if there is the right place out there right now?
I don't know, and I think that I say that because it feels as if there's still some dominoes to fall. Does Jim Harbaugh go to the Chargers? Does Bill Belichick go to the Falcons? And it almost feels as if those two change the state of play in a lot of ways. And if not, the Chargers are in cap hell.
Yep.
They've got 5 players locked up with all this money, and they've got all these questions about, is Bosa going to be healthy, and what do you do with these wide receivers? Keenan Allen certainly coming off of a phenomenal year, but definitely aging. Mike Williams definitely aging. Khalil Mack, who is a force, but of course a lot of money. But you've got a quarterback. You've got a quarterback that in some ways has underachieved a little bit, but maybe he hasn't been set up the best ways. He certainly has all the talent and the demeanor to do it. So you would think that that's certainly attractive. And it's LA. It's California. Did I just call them San Diego? The Chargers. I just
Yep.
the Chargers.
We do it all the time.
Okay. Thank you. Vegas. I've always gotten over the Raiders thing, but I did refer to them as Oakland the other day too. Atlanta, I love that defense. I love that Atlanta defense. And there's a lot of tremendous leaders of men on that defense. And I think if there's anything we've learned, you need internal player leadership too. But they've got a huge question at quarterback, and that certainly killed Belichick the last few years.
Yep.
And, so I don't know that I can tell you what is an ideal fit, because there's also, I mean, how much say is Vrabel going to insist upon, and does he have the ability to do that? I'm very much of the mind, and it's easy for me to say this because I've never been in this position, but I like a separation of powers. I like a head coach who is a CEO head coach who hires trusted people to call the plays and such on defense and offense so that he's available to every unit at all times. I like having a general manager who is separate of the head coach so that there are personnel checks and balances and that there's genuine debate. You know, it's funny. John Harbaugh and Eric DaCosta, to me, are such a great pairing because they know how to argue. And I think there's a real skill in knowing how to argue with someone. And maybe you feel so strongly about A, and the other person feels so strongly about B, and you can fight it out, and think the person who wants B is totally wrong, but still leave with respect for each other. And I think that that's so important, right? And so, like, when one person has all the power, I don't love that. You know, like in the city of Pittsburgh, we're talking about this a lot right now. Does Mike Tomlin get so much credit for doing whatever he's done with this roster? Well, Mike Tomlin has as much say over this roster as anybody else. So, like, chicken or egg, right? Mm-hmm. Like, this is a bet of his own making in some ways. So I don't know. I mean, not that Mike Vrabel is listening to me, but I would tell him sometimes it's nice to have a GM that you can trust and believe in. And hey, last year in Rand picked 7 guys that all contributed in some way. So a smart GM is not necessarily something holding you back. It might be someone who makes you better.
Yep.
It's great insight from Aditi Kinkhabwala, who is everywhere. Read her on CBSSports.com. We'll link that article she mentioned as well about the special teams coaches, and the insight in that, I think, is noteworthy and interesting there. And this is the first time you'll be able to hear her on the Zone this upcoming weekend, as Westwood One coverage of Chiefs and Bills will be right here. Aditi, stay warm, enjoy it, and thank you as always. Great stuff.
Thanks so much for having me, guys. I can't wait to be back when it's warm. Nashville.
And when they have a coach, right?
Think warm thoughts.
You know what's so funny, actually? I was at the NFL Network when Mike Vrabel was hired, and I was the person sent for Mike Vrabel's opening press conference.
I remember you sitting in that room where they used to have press conferences, Aditi. I remember that.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
I hope I was friendly.
You were great.
I remember that my cameraman got in a fight with my producer. I remember that. And then I remember interviewing Vrabel in the practice bubble, and my producer had us like sit on a table because if we stood, it was like way too jarring. Yeah. And Vrabel looked a little menacing because he was so big.
See, these are
in a very good mood that day.
These are the kinds of off-season stories that we will be able to discuss with Aditi when the Titans have a coach and there is not playoff football and negative 70 degrees going on. So stay tuned for that.
Discuss how to make a good live shot and how to set an interview so that the new head coach doesn't look menacing next to the 5'3".
I love it.
Reporter.
Aditi, thank you so much. Have a good call this weekend.
Awesome.
Thanks so much. Bye, guys.
Bye, Aditi.
There's Aditi Kinkhabwala with us. Westwood One coverage of Chiefs and Bills, 5:15 Sunday night on 104.5 The Zone. Great stuff. She's the best.
I just love her because she's real. Like, she's just going to tell it how it is, and she doesn't need to apologize for any of it. Like, she's been around the league. Like, I respect the heck out of her.
I do too.
Coming up, we'll wrap up the headlines, get to things we missed. Notable piece of conversation from Brent Hubbs earlier this morning we can get to as we wrap up the show in the week next.
It's Ramon Foster for United Structural Systems. When it comes to large home repairs, a lot of the time we homeowners pretend we don't see the warning signs. We're afraid of what we're going to hear. This is especially true with waterproofing and foundation repair. It could be something big that needs to be fixed right away, or a small problem that'll become bigger later, or it can be nothing at all, okay? Bottom line is we don't know, and we certainly don't want to be sold something we don't need. We need a peace of mind. And United Structural Systems is the company to give you that. They have an attitude and culture. That's a reason why they keep their employees year after year. So when somebody comes to your house, they're going to have experience in what they're doing. They're not going to oversell you on something to try to meet a sales quota or anything like that. You can believe and trust in USS because homeowners trust USS. Keeping homes dry and stable for over 25 years. USS serving Middle Tennessee, Southern Kentucky, Western Kentucky, and Northern Alabama. You can reach them online at USSTN.com or call them 615-488-7855.
Wrapping up the show at RKW, brewed up by 8th and Roast. Final call for phone calls at 615-737-1045. Vegas odds on head coaches have been so prevalent. What about Vegas odds on Buck Rising showing up to work today?
Ooh, 50-50? Or what are we
I
at
would
right
say
now?
yes is plus 500.
I have inside information, so I don't
Do
know if
you?
I'm allowed to bet on this, but I have not been asked to stay for the Buck
Okay.
Rising show. So I would assume that he would be in studio today.
But he could
Very
still slip on
interesting.
ice on accident.
Kayla, please.
Don't tempt me with a good time.
I'd like to go home.
Of course not get hurt.
No, yeah, you want
We
to
don't wanna
film
see
it
him
if
get
that
hurt.
happens.
Oh, no, if I slip on something, I'm definitely getting hurt. I'm only slipping somewhere where I can make some money. I got a lawyer friend, and every time I talk to her, I ask her, what do I need to do to make you my Saul Goodman? How do I scam somebody into making sure I don't have to work no more?
Well, you are a lawyer. You are our Ron Slay's lawyer.
Yeah, technically, I haven't passed the bar yet,
Okay,
but still
fair.
working on that. Maybe you could say paralegal.
You've
but-
been to plenty bars, but you haven't passed it yet. Hey, now.
Ooh-wee.
I know y'all hate me so much. I'm so sorry.
Hey, Bert, that is freaking hilarious, man. I'm a fall where I know I can get paid. If that ain't the realest thing ever, I absolutely love that, man.
Goodness sakes. Maybe pay attention to the UT Knoxville student portal today. 5-star lineman might show up in it later today.
Ooh.
How the heck do y'all know how to search these things, man?
He got
Sources. No, I mean, it's public info. Like the UT student, you don't have to have a student email. Like, I'll go look right now. UTK student portal and see if Zalance Hurd, the 5-star lineman from LSU, has popped up yet. I would expect that to happen over the weekend. So far, there are 6 people in the UT system with the last name Hurd, and none of them are Lance or Zalance so far. So still waiting. But
Okay.
I would expect Tennessee to add the number, I believe, 8 player in the On3 transfer portal rankings this weekend. We asked Brent Hubbs about 5-star quarterback George McIntyre, who is expected to commit early next week, and how important his recruitment will be at Tennessee's junior day this weekend. And Brent Hubbs had this to say.
Well, I think quarterbacks come off the board early for a couple of reasons. One is selfish, right? There's only one football, and there's only one spot, right? Nobody's going to go somewhere where they're 5 deep at quarterback or 4 deep at quarterback. I mean, they don't set. That's why there was a lot of high-profile quarterbacks in the transfer portal this offseason. I mean, you look at Brock Vandagriff from down at Georgia. I mean, he's not going to win the job there, right? They've got their guy. And so he's looking to play elsewhere, and that's why he went in the portal. So these guys are looking to kind of claim their spot early. That's why you see quarterbacks committing earlier than some other positions. And then they do have an effect in peer recruiting because, receivers are wanting to play somewhere where a guy can get them the ball, the guy that they believe in. And, all these guys know each other now through 7-on-7 tournaments and camps and all those types of things. But I don't know that peer recruiting has as much of an impact as it did 5-10 years ago because of the emergence of NIL. I think, instead of, a lot of people building dream classes like we've seen through the years, everybody's making a selfish decision. I mean, and they should, don't get me wrong. I mean, it's just one of those deals where, they're looking out for their best interest. And in some cases, for some guys, it's distance from home. For some guys, it's being around, other good players. Some guys, it's the coaching staff and the style of play. And for some guys, it's strictly, what does my NIL deal look like there compared to somewhere else? And, hey, if I can get a good deal for year one, if it don't work out, I can always go to portal. I go to portal twice a year if I want to. So there's a little bit more of that kind of decision-making going on in recruiting right now than we've seen in years past, obviously with the emergence of NIL.
So there's Brent Hubbs, and if you missed any of that conversation from 720, you can check out the RKW podcast, search Ramon, Kayla, and Will wherever you download podcasts. Go to Hour 2. And that entire discussion is there. Interesting stuff on guys recruiting their friends and how that's maybe not as meaningful as it used to be.
Yeah, that athletic article you sent to us, I think, gave so much insider information on how this stuff works these days. And if you love the school, the kids will go to it. There's no other way around it, right? But they do have to consider what NIL is because a lot of the time these young men don't come from great financial backgrounds, and that always plays a part in it too. Heck, if you tell him I can get 15 here, but I can get 25 over there, mom and pops is probably going to appreciate the 25 a month instead of that 15.
Yeah, it's crazy how we have seen college football change almost every year. It's just a little bit different, right?
Yeah.
It just continues to evolve in its own way. And I'm sure this isn't the last time we're talking about how you get a guy to a school, right? I mean, money, getting your word out there with your players, the head coaches matter. I mean, now it's the whole package, baby.
So that is the show. That is the week. Titans head coaching search continues. Aaron Glenn and Brian Johnson scheduled to speak with the team today. David Shaw, the 11th name, requested to speak with the Titans. Interesting to see what we learn over the weekend. I would guess at the very least we hear of one more callback interview next week.
Yeah.
Of coaches who are not currently in the playoffs. I guess if you're a Titans fan, you're cheering against Bobby Slowick and other guys you want. I don't know.
Right.
Sure.
This upcoming weekend. Back at it again Monday morning at 6 a.m. We'll have all the latest from the Titans coaching search. Stay safe on the ice out there and listen to these words of wisdom as well from Ramon Foster.
You must remember, good people all the time, your Twitter fingers and your mic is always hot.